Hello, and welcome to another episode of Treasury Talks, where we talk with thought leaders across the nation about different areas of finance and the economy. And today I have with me two professionals inside of the insurance space, none other than the one and only Trinidad Navarro, our insurance commissioner here in Delaware, and Lakia Turner, also inside the Department of Insurance. Thank you guys so much for being with me today. I'd love it if you could each just sort of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Sure. My name is Lakia Turner, and I am the director of Delaware's Medicare Assistance Bureau. I have been employed by the Department of Insurance since almost about 22 years. And I started as a college student, working through various departments here at the Department of Insurance. In 2002, I graduated from Delaware State University, and I became the assistant director of the program. And then probably about 5 years later, I became the director of the program, and I've been in this capacity since that time. It's like family here, so it's been a great experience. And in my capacity, I provide information and education to Delaware Medicare senior citizens and those who are disabled.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. How about Trinidad? Are you able to give us a little bit of background on yourself, how you got to where you are, and maybe just a tiny snapshot when it comes to what you do and what your role is as our insurance commissioner?
Well, thank you, Colleen, for the opportunity today. Many folks in Delaware know me as a police officer. I was Newcastle County police officer 20 years, and I was the guy that the media misquoted for the last 12 years of my career. I was the media coordinator. So after retiring from the police department, I was the county sheriff, and that was a great job. But I hated the fact that I had to sell people's properties in sheriff sales. So we had to not only sell their homes, but oftentimes evict them. So I was fortunate and blessed to be in the right place at the right time when I ran for insurance commissioner. I do have an insurance background prior to my years in law enforcement, and I was a perfect fit. So I'm really fortunate to be where I'm at. Just was reelected this year. Many folks think that the Delaware Department of Insurance sells insurance. We don't do that. We regulate the industry. We help people who have insurance issues. And that's the best part of the job, is helping folks, because the insurance industry has the lobbyists and the lawyers and the money to really push people around. And we are that advocate for consumers. So one of our most important programs that we have is the Delaware Medicare Assistance Bureau, which Lakia is the manager that oversees that program. And we're super excited about talking about that today.
I know that May is Older Americans Month and provides for a sort of an extra focus with regard to selecting proper Medicare coverage. Can you talk somewhat about what some of those problems might be, the misconceptions that folks might face, and how your office is sort of lending assistance?
We provide free one-on-one counseling within, we call our program DMAB. So you'll hear me refer to Delaware Medicare Assistance Bureau as DMAB. But some of the things that we have been seeing recently is that a challenge, individuals are enrolling into Medicare Advantage plans, and they have questions They're not, unfortunately, unsure of what they're enrolling into. Not always do they do the proper research that can be done. And many times they find that this insurance actually costs them more than what they can afford. A lot of times individuals see the Joe Namath commercial on television that's advertising $0 premiums, no copays at the doctor's office. And what happens, these plans are generally good for healthy consumers. Or if you do not have any chronic health conditions. However, someone who does have chronic health conditions or is unable to purchase a Medicare supplement or Medigap policy, this plan may work for them. We've seen individuals who have contacted us who have sometimes had to go into their savings to pay for this insurance. Individuals do not realize that while there's $0 for a premium for the health plans, there is a premium that they have to pay with Medicare monthly, which is $148.50. And they think because they enroll in this Medicare Advantage plan that they eliminate paying that $148. Well, that's not the case. Some of the plans do have a $0 copay. However, some plans do have a $5 to $30 copay for a doctor visit, or they may have, and that's for the primary care. However, when they go to see their specialist, it might cost them anywhere from $40 to $50. So individuals have to definitely do their research on these plans. They are designed to be used here in the state of Delaware. You can go outside of Delaware if you have a preferred provider organization, which is a PPO. However, in most cases, you do have to use their network of doctors. So you have to make sure that your doctors will accept this insurance prior to going to visit that doctor. So I encourage anyone that is thinking about these Advantage plans, which they're not bad, but you just have to make sure that they best fit your needs based on your medical coverage, or otherwise you may find yourself going into your savings. You may find yourself not being able to afford this insurance. So call our office and speak with a counselor who can answer your questions and set you up for a one-on-one counseling experience. Another way of meeting the public, we actually started creating Facebook Live videos, just a little snippet of the topics of Medicare and how we can help Medicare individuals in the community. So if you go on Mondays and check out the Department of Insurance website, there you will be able to find a little snippet about various Medicare topics that we have discussed.
Wow. It's really impressive the way that you're able to make all of these different connections to be sure that you remain accessible to the public.
I just wanted to back up a little bit about what Lakia was saying about PMAP. It's the number one program that we offer. It's the one that we often get what I call thank you letters or attaboys with respect to she and her staff and what a great job that they do. The one thing that people don't understand is, we've made these arrangements now, whether it's WebEx or Zoom or Facebook, but every year people come back, and they come back because the copays change, the premiums change, the plans change, and they're confused, and oftentimes they're uncertain, and Lakia and her staff are able to help folks navigate these complexities that for most of them, they've had insurance either through their employer or other means their whole life. And when they're transitioning into Medicare, it's a scary time for a lot of folks.
And I think so many of us have been challenged by the pandemic. And I would say there's often some confusion about the things that your office does and doesn't do. And one of the topics that arose during the pandemic was unemployment insurance. But regulating the unemployment insurance industry does not fall under your umbrella. Can you talk a little bit about what you specifically regulate and how that really translates to the support that you give Delawareans?
With respect to, unemployment insurance, this is something that is regulated by the Department of Labor. We do get calls regularly from people who are business owners who, because their premiums went up, due to the pandemic, which was no fault of their own. And they have a hard time sometimes reaching someone at the DOL. And it's not because they're, well, we all have that challenge right now because many of us in state government are working remotely. But they can call us, and we will call directly to the Department of Labor for them. So there's often times where we'll have scenarios that are not insurance related. And we never, ever say, well, that's not our problem, or we don't regulate that. We always try to help them by either connecting them with someone that, we don't regulate Medicare and Medicaid or self-funded plans. But that doesn't mean that we can't help people, whether it's a state employee who has an issue. Together, you and I serve on the SEBC, the State Employee Benefits Commission. So we're able to help folks in that regard, whether it's through a denial or some sort of appeal that we'll go into executive session and we can resolve. So we help people with all lines of insurance, whether it's your homeowners, your auto, life insurance we already touched on. I'll just say that if you learn anything from today, make sure you shop around because folks many times will be with their same insurer for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And you're the ideal client for these companies because they'll raise your rates a little bit every year. And over time, you're paying much more for a product that if you shopped around, you could see significant savings.
A lot of people might not realize the correlation between what you do and some of the financial issues that they may deal with, particularly some of what we do inside the treasurer's office and what we're involved with. And making proper insurance coverage decisions has a huge effect on people's spending and saving ability. Can you talk a little bit about that correlation?
Sure. Well, we often get questions about whether or not people should keep their insurance policies many times in the life insurance arena because people will purchase a product knowing that they have a mortgage, knowing that they have children who they want to send to college, and they also want to protect their assets. And as we age, there in many cases, unfortunate situations, people will pay off their mortgage or their kids will graduate from college. So they don't necessarily need that advantage or that product that will protect them in the event that they pass away and then they can't pay their mortgage or they can't send their children to school. So this is something that we often talk about as part of planning your financial future. We cannot tell people, and we're not financial advisors, but we do often direct them to a financial advisor because these are decisions. Life changes. But it still doesn't mean that you shouldn't have coverage, whether it's in life insurance, but specifically with health insurance. I mean, many folks are healthy, thankfully, and so they go their whole lives without having to see a physician, and they think that they can chance it. And unfortunately, whether it's they're younger, they think they're immortal, or as they're getting older and approaching the Medicare age, it's super important to make sure that you're covered in the event of a twisted ankle or a catastrophic event. So we always tell folks or explain to them the perils that are possible and the need for insurance.
When I think about what you guys do, it's not very well known, but you're extremely passionate about what you do, and you truly have a very significant impact on lives here in Delaware. I would love it if, Trinidad, if you wouldn't mind just sort of closing us out with, a story of someone that you helped, and again, as in your role as insurance commissioner.
Well, we have about 1,000 of these stories, and I'll just share one with you. But we had a lady. Her first name was Brenda, and she was suffering from stage 4 renal cancer, and her insurer was refusing to pay for her prescription drugs because they said they were too expensive. So she called the company. She called a supervisor. She really got nowhere with the company whatsoever. So she was at her wit's end. Ultimately, she called State Representative Deb Heffernan, who called my office. And she explained the situation to me. And I made one phone call to the insurance company. And within an hour, they changed their mind and they decided they were going to cover her prescription drugs. And it was a drug called Neulasta, which isn't going to cure her cancer, but it's going to take the likelihood that she suffered from an infection and drop it by about 95%. So it's going to make her quality of life much more manageable. So they changed their mind. And, I think a lot of times people think that if an insurance company says, we think you're at fault 50%, so we're only going to reimburse you at 50% of the claim, or in this case, we don't want to pay for your prescription drugs, and they won't say this, but because we know that your illness is terminal and it's very expensive. People often think that they have to abide by what the insurance company says, and that is certainly not the case. So we step up and help people regularly, and if we can't fix it by just making the phone call, we can send it to arbitration. And last year, we recovered almost $750,000 for people who otherwise would have had a much smaller either settlement or payment for whether it's prescription drugs or an auto accident or a life insurance claim. So we're very successful in that arena.
Thank you so much for the work that you do. I really appreciate both of you being here and taking time out of your busy day just to help get more information out there. I hope that we can be a platform for supporting folks and getting them to you because you're doing amazing work, both of you. Commissioner Navarro, thank you so much. Lakia, thank you so much. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. My pleasure.